Hi, everyone. Good, that's a good start. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on our Saturday morning soiree. How can you have a morning soiree? Well, anyway, we're here. Guess who my sponsor is? Thank you very much to Sean and Five Star Marine for letting me wear their hat. This is the sort of thing that you should be wearing in Thailand if you're out in the sunshine. I've got quite a lot of sunshine this week because I've been out gardening, getting ready for property number 4 and 5. By the way, up behind me, up here, we've got 2 new turtle shells. I suppose I can go and get them for you. Got pants on, so here we go. So, prepared by Mr. Steve Ross with an E. This one, here we go, Turtle Beach, house number 1. And we've got Nemo here and a whole lot of other sort of hieroglyphics and a big one there. So this will be proudly displayed in the living room of Turtle Beach House number 1, which is our 4th property, and Beach House number 2, Turtle Beach House number 2. We've got Dory here, looking a little bit compromised, and beautifully decorated, absolutely beautifully done. I love these. These are paper mache turtle shells prepared by Steve and his team of artistes just down the road. So thank you, Steve, and thank you to the people that put those together. They will be proudly displayed. Now, I have quite a lot to say about the road debt. Can I take this off? It's a bit uncomfortable, really. Oh my God, what happened to my hair? So I've got quite a lot to say when it comes to the road deaths in Thailand. I mean, there's a lot of misinformation about Thailand roads and Thailand road deaths. That is a great big mark on my screen. There we are, that's a bit better. I've got animals around me and I've got a lot of people online, so I better get my shit together. So I suppose I will start with the topic this morning, talking about the word common sense in my title. I think some people might be taking umbrage that I'm having a go at Thai people. And I mean, to an extent I am. But when I'm referring to common sense in the thumbnail of today's program, I'm referring a lot to the common sense of people when it comes to talking about road deaths and the road toll in Thailand, because Thailand does have a notoriously high road toll. But there's quite a lot of nuance in that, and I think that's worth addressing. And of course, this is all on the back of Tuesday's horrific bus fire, which killed 20 students and 3 teachers. It's really made a nudge in the sort of Thailand thinking, and the whole vibe has really focused this week on. My gardener's just arrived. He'll be coming and saying, well, what do you want me to do? So, it's all happening here. So let's go into some of the statistics, and I'll get to the questions later. Welcome to everybody, by the way. A lot of the usual suspects and a few new faces as well, which we'll get to. But let's get to our coverage. And I suppose starting with a fairly stark photo there, this is from the front of the bus that was burnt out in that conflagration in Pathum Thani. This is just north of Bangkok. Tuesday, I think it happened around about 1 o'clock. That bus really completely burnt out. Interesting to note there that it is a single-decker bus, being that the top level was for the passengers. The bottom level is basically for a sleeping area for bus staff and also for all the luggage. I get the feeling that some of these might be converted double-decker buses, but they were outlawed in Thailand in most cases. So some of these may be converted double-decker buses, but they've just put all the passengers on the top. And of course, putting a lot of the weight on the top, particularly like with a school trip, there may not be much luggage, so there may not be much weight below. You might have a very top-heavy situation travelling down or careening down a road. Let's go to the story. It's been written by Thai PBS, originally from AFP. School trips have been cast as disasters waiting to happen after 20 students and 3 teachers perished. The tragic accident has triggered a wave of comments from parents expressing their fears about allowing their children to participate in educational trips arranged by schools. I have a very good friend whose daughter died in a school trip. And during my days in schools, and I'm sure in yours as well, there would have been many, many school trips and things that we usually looked forward to. A chance to sort of get out of sitting behind a desk and watching a teacher dragging chalk across a blackboard. I used to love the school trips, and I don't think for one moment I ever thought or considered that I was in some sort of danger when I got on those big school buses. Here in Thailand, it may be a different thing where parents are now, given the high amount of publicity to cases like this. I've got one stray hair hanging over my eye. I have to give my eyebrows a clip. So it is something I think that worries parents, and would be horrible to think your child is so excited about going on the school trip, but then the parents are thinking in the back of their mind, oh, gee, I wonder if they're going to come back safe. Would be a horrible way to say goodbye to your child. And in a bid to ease their concerns, the Education Ministry has suspended all unessential, whatever that means, field trips planned by state schools until further notice. And an assistant professor, Jiraporn Arunakun, famous for her work with at-risk teenagers and her Facebook page Take Kids With Us, says the educational trips offer children opportunities to see and learn beyond textbooks. During school trips, she says, they learn to take care of themselves without the presence of their parents. There is a need for these school trips. So these school trips are very useful, especially for Thai kids who are sort of pretty much told to sit down and listen to your teacher and do what they say. I think it's really good for them to just expand their learning experience beyond the classroom, more so maybe than kids in other education systems. The concerns include accident risks during travel and at trip sites, kids getting lost in large crowds, dangerous environments such as construction sites, rivers, waterfalls, threats from animals, unsafe equipment, and potential kidnapping. I suppose you could put that all under the bracket of living. And at scrutiny following the incident this week are the 54-year-old double-decker bus, it wasn't double-decker, and its driver who initially fled the scene. Not quite right. In the moments after the fire was noticed, the bus driver ran out of the bus to try and get a fire extinguisher from one of the other buses on the same trip. And then obviously he realised that there wasn't much he could do. The fire overtook and he fled the scene. So it's not as if he just opened the door and ran. He did actually stay to try and do something, but it obviously got out of hand very, very quickly. Doesn't excuse him fleeing the scene, but he did actually try and do something in the initial moments after the fire started. And she also said that we need to ensure that buses used for school trips have got safety belts, fire extinguishers and glass breakers. I would say that's a bare minimum. Getting kids to put the seat belts on is another thing. Fire extinguishers, why did he have to leave the bus to get a fire extinguisher? Or was the fire extinguisher maybe down the back of the bus and he couldn't get down there quickly? Glass breakers, of course, they're the things with a little point. You hit the glass and it shatters because you just try and bash or even kick the glass. Nothing usually happens. So, I think they're 3 safety measures. I'm sure you'll probably come up with your own. But clearly at the root of all this is the safety of these buses. It appears, from what we've read this week, that this was originally an Isuzu truck of sorts that got converted into a bus. 54 years old, it had been, it was currently registered. It had passed safety inspections. Who's doing these safety inspections? What is their experience? What's their education? Are there cases of paper bags being used to well, perhaps subvert safety inspections. A criticism from the People's Party, this is the part of the opposition in Thailand, an MP said buses transporting students suffered approximately 30 accidents or serious mishaps back in 2022, and that includes all types of school buses. And during the first quarter of this year, one child died and 153 were injured in such incidents. So we are now going to go through a whole lot of, I suppose, what you'd call stats. And we will be getting to your comments very, very soon. Just this one jumps out. Jeff Whitty Art says, yes, trips are important, but should never be valued over safety first. You want to make sure those buses are safe. Maybe there needs to be an officer at the school who is properly prepared and educated and given knowledge in such matters to do a quick inspection of the bus before it takes off with the students. Would probably only take 5 minutes, the sort of thing a pilot would do with an aeroplane every single time it flies. So the pilot does a walk around. I mean, I'm a trained pilot, something that we just routinely do. We don't just get in the plane, turn the key and take off. We do a walk around, and there's probably 50, 60 things, depending on the sort of plane it is, that you would inspect. And you wouldn't be taking off there if there was one thing wrong, or if you suspected that there was anything wrong. Maybe the situation needs to be the same with buses. We'll get to more of your comments soon. Just from another article, this was from nationthailand.com, and it says there are some 13,500 passenger buses in Thailand registered as using compressed natural gas. The same as the ill-fated bus. Of those, 10,500 serve regular routes and nearly 3,000 are available for charter, which begs the question, how many buses are there in Thailand? Well, according to Wikipedia, there are some 158,000 buses and I don't know what this is, 624,000 other vehicles. But officially, 158,000 buses. 13,500 of those are this compressed natural gas, which comes in gas tanks. I've had 2 cars which had gas. They were previously petrol cars and they converted them to gas. Quite popular thing in Australia. Well, it was a couple of decades ago. And the gas was a bit cheaper to run the car. You lost about 5 or 10% performance, but really nobody noticed. But you were driving around with a sort of a bomb sitting in the back of your car. And of course, if that natural gas explodes, it does explode quite quickly. Less so with petrol, even less so with diesel, of course. Let's go into some more of these statistics. And the total number of road accidents in Thailand, and this is numbers back in 2023, by region. Of course, Bangkok and the metropolitan has the highest number of road accidents, some 84,000. This is back in 2023. The northeastern part of Thailand is the second highest area in Thailand, nearly 82,000 deaths back in 2023. And then we go central, southern, northern, eastern, western, pretty much following the population bases in Thailand. But interesting to notice that the northeast of Thailand comes second after Bangkok. So let's get into a few sort of deep dives. And there's no one set of statistics that you can use to say Thailand is number 1 or 10 or 20 or whatever, because it depends how it's measured. A lot of the statistics that we have go back quite a few years. Some of the trends, as per the number of different demographics that die in road accidents, are probably much the same now as they were 10 years ago. The actual numbers might be going up or down each year, but the trends are here. Starting off with this article, and it asks the question, which country has the most car accidents in the world? Okay, the total highest number of car accidents in the world. This is not per capita, just the total highest number. You might be surprised. I was. It says the United States of America has the unfortunate distinction of officially reporting the most annual car crashes of any country in the world. I think the operative word here is reporting. They'd have a very high standard of reporting. In fact, it's got 4 times as many car accidents each year as the next most crash-prone nation, Japan. And number 1, 2, 3, United States, Japan, and then Germany. Number 3. When was this article written? Can't quite see. Here we are, 2024. Okay, it was written earlier this year in the publication drive.com.au. Now, that's if you believe the official numbers. The World Health Organization disputes China's, further down it also mentions India's, official annual road toll figures, estimating they are 4 times higher. It's also possible India has the most car crashes in the world but is unable to properly report it. So the article suggesting that countries like China and India are maybe not as adept or perhaps don't have the same range of performance when it comes to reporting these official statistics. So let's go just to raw numbers. Now, I think these go back to 2023. And the first lot of statistics looks at the most dangerous country in the world when it comes to road deaths. And this is per capita. And it's measured per 100,000 people. So we can see that the most dangerous place to drive on the roads in the world per capita is Zimbabwe. In fact, African countries do figure very highly in this top 10. So, 41 people per 100,000 inhabitants die in Zimbabwe, followed by Venezuela, Liberia, Eritrea, Central African Republic, Southern Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo. You're all wondering when Thailand's going to pop up. Here we go. Number 10, Namibia, Malawi, again, African nations figuring highly, Sierra Leone, Tonga, Chad, Guinea-Bissau, and then number 16 on a per capita basis, the highest, Thailand, there we go, 32 people per 100,000 inhabitants die from road deaths. Thailand, number 16. So that's one way of measuring how unsafe Thailand's roads are. Number 16, nothing to be proud of at all. Now, just going to pure total numbers of people per nation, and China and India come number 1 and 2. And we'll go through the methodology of how these numbers are worked out a little bit later. And as we mentioned earlier, right up the top there, also the United States. Again, this is the total number of people dying in a country. You also have to remember in the United States, so many people have cars and they've got such a substantial and wide-ranging road network, probably the biggest road network of anywhere in the world. So hardly surprising to see the US so high there. Then Nigeria, Brazil, Ethiopia. This is the total number of people dying. And in this list, Thailand, number 12, with the 12th highest number of people dying in total per country around the world. So different ways of measuring it, but Thailand either number 12 or number 16 from these statistics from 2023. And just methodology here, as reported by Wikipedia, the total fatality figures come from the World Health Organization report and are often adjusted with the number of road deaths fatalities in order to reflect the different reporting and counting methods among the many countries. So, different countries have different way of counting deaths. In Thailand, for example, if a person doesn't actually die at the road scene, they may not be counted as a road death, but apparently this list takes these different ways of reporting road deaths into account. So it's probably about as good as we're going to get as a comparison of where the most dangerous roads are. Let's see what else we've got here. These are some graphics which I think show the situation in Thailand, and I think this is the most important graphic that I'll show you during this hour. showing that it's not just everybody on the road that is in danger, although of course any time you do go out on the road, you are in a certain amount of danger. Particularly though, these people. And 3 in 4 deaths occur among motorcycle users. Been well reported many times. Every time there's the New Year road toll, the Songkran road toll, it's always around 75% of the road deaths are people on motorbikes. So yeah, 3 in 4 deaths occur among motorcycle users. Next down there, 4 in 5 deaths are male. And that's also very important to remember. The driving habits and probably a cultural thing to a degree when it comes to drinking and driving. 4 in 5 deaths in Thailand on the road are men. And the other important statistic, as I've mentioned quite a few times before, 1 in 4 deaths occur among people who are aged 15 to 24. So a much higher proportion of people dying in that age group, 15 to 24. And if you live in Thailand long enough, you'll know that there are kids driving around on motorbikes with a motorbike is much bigger than the kid on the bike. You might see 3 or 4 youngsters, maybe all under the age of 16 on a motorbike. I see it here most days, kids going up to school just up the road. So these are, I suppose, just raw numbers. And by reporting these as numbers, we also want to acknowledge that these are actual lives. These are real people. These are people with friends and families. These are people who are not going to be sitting down at the dining table and enjoying food and discussion and all the wonders of life anymore. They're gone. They're reported here as sheer numbers, but we should remember that these numbers are actually people. Another interesting statistic, and this is a report, quite an extensive report, prepared by the Associate Professor of the Department of Civil Engineering and Faculty of Engineering in Chiang Mai University, and it used statistics back in 2000 to 2008. So the numbers are a bit old, but they do give some interesting insights. Excuse me. The number of large buses and coaches involved in accidents. So we can see from 2000 to 2008, there seems to be somewhat of an average here. Back in 2000, 3,500 buses involved in accidents. It sort of went up and down. In 2008, it got down to 2,500, but the average is around about 3,000 buses per year being involved in accidents. I think in some cases we need to call these incidents. An accident would suggest that it was some sort of act of God that caused the incident. Incidents, I think, refer to people maybe intentionally, or not necessarily intentionally, but because of neglect or problems that could have been averted, these incidents happened. In most cases, these incidents are avoidable. I call them incidents rather than accidents. And this particular statistic, and this measures the deaths per 100 people, and it uses the distance that they've covered to measure the statistics. So at the top you've got things like motorcycles, a bit further down you've got things like flying and travelling by rail, and of course people would be travelling a lot further by air or by rail than on a motorbike. So the numbers for air and rail do figure very, very, very low because, of course, of the vast numbers of kilometres covered. But in whichever way you want to look at it, the motorcycles and the mopeds do come up on top. And measured even per kilometre, the motorcycles come up well on top. Second, foot, a bicycle, in a car. You can see that you're much, much, much safer in a car in Thailand than you are on a motorbike. And then buses and coaches, way, way down there as well. So statistically, you are in Thailand, compared to other ways of dying on the road, statistically, you are relatively safe. I think we'll go to some of your comments and questions now. And I'm sure some of you will have a reaction to that and some comments about how you see driving on Thailand's roads. A lot of you would have experience driving on Thailand's roads. I'll just bring that a little bit closer. And let's go to some of your comments. First I'd just like to acknowledge, Eileen Morris-Duke. Eileen Morris-Duke, you're a superstar. Thank you very, very much. And I'm glad to be watching today, says Eileen. Your generosity is really much appreciated, and we do look forward to you getting over here one day so I can, in some way, return your generosity and hospitality. Thanks, Eileen. I taught at a top-tier school in Bangkok, says Ken Trottier. There always used to be Monterey buses, and they run a good service. And the administration of the school insisted that the driver do a supervised breathalyzer test. There you go. Another thing we could insist, that before the driver takes off with the kids, he does do, or she does, a breathalyzer test. In the images of the gas cylinders, there were no gas fused. There were no gas fused, says John. I'm not sure what you mean there, John. Fun-sized media, these buses frighten me. But the ones to Hua Hin and Pattaya are safe, I think. I've travelled from Bangkok to Hua Hin. I've travelled from Phuket to Hua Hin. I've travelled from Bangkok airport to Pattaya. I've travelled from Udon Thani to Loei in northeastern Thailand, all on a bus. I'm not a huge fan of buses. I mean, you're sort of sitting up there and it wallows around, floating on the airbags, a bit like driving in an old Range Rover. I don't find the travel particularly comfortable, but that's good to, watch the world go by. I'm okay sort of using my laptop on a bus. A lot of people aren't. They get sort of car sick if they're watching a screen whilst they're on something like a car or a bus. I don't really have any particular fear of buses. If I felt unsafe, I'd politely ask to be let off and I'd make some other arrangements. I suppose you've got to use some level of common sense, but I'm sure none of the teachers or the students said to the bus driver, is this bus propelled by liquid gas? Not something that anybody would have thought of. I bet they will in the future, and that would be the first question I'm pretty sure any teachers organising a school excursion will be asking. Is that bus diesel? Is it petrol, or does it have liquid natural gas? The cylinders require a gas fuse on each cylinder. Thanks, John. I've now got the explanation. The cylinders require a gas fuse on each cylinder outlet and non-return valves on the manifold, where all the hoses join together to protect against uncontrolled something or other. Thank you, John. You're speaking above my pay grade at the moment. I'm really not into the engineering of natural gas cylinders, but I understand that, of course, if there is a leak or an explosive leak, these can be quite dangerous. Frank in Philippines, yes, is different. Compressed natural gas has higher something kilojoules per kilogram than liquid petroleum gas. Okay, so CNG, which this bus had, has got a higher pressure. There's got more gas in it than the LPG. Release of gas in case of hose failure. Okay, thanks, John. I appreciate all your efforts to try and make it clear to me. I think per capita is a better gauge to vehicle safety. Jeff Whitty, yes, for sure. And I think that's why the per capita is the best method of reading it. But interesting to note that China, India and the United States, three large countries, and in all cases have a very high level of car ownership, are going to be contributing very highly to the statistics, of course. But per capita is the best way to measure it. KJ, you're just going to have to go back to the start and watch. I think I made it pretty clear where the statistics were coming from and what they were measuring. Thais have no drunk driving rule enforced. Well, they have the rules, but you're right, it's the enforcement of those rules. And may I take just a moment of your time just to talk about my own situation in Australia. I mean, I don't drink, so I've never been drinking or driving. When I was young in Australia, my father wasn't a drinker, by the way. He used to have a bit of a sherry when he came back from work, but he never went down to the bar or anything like that. Very, very rarely. He'd maybe once a year catch up with his old war mates down at the Return Services League, the RSL club. He might have a beer or two there, but and maybe when around the dinner table on a Friday or Saturday night, friends had come around and a bottle of good wine had be opened. And it was always available to me. I just went, nah, it doesn't really interest me. Anyway, all that aside. But when I was young, there was quite a lot of drink driving going on in Australia where people wouldn't think at all about going down to the pub, having 5 or 6 beers and then driving home. And the road toll in Australia was horrendous. It was, I'm pretty sure, one of the highest in the world. Over the period of my youth and then into my teenage years and becoming a young adult, that started to change. The governments of the time, and it was continued throughout successive governments, decided to go on a generational change of Australia's drinking habits. Such that by the time I left Australia, it had a very well developed culture of making sure people were not on the roads if they were drunk. In fact, if you were at a bar and you'd had a few drinks and you say, okay, I'll grab my keys and I'm going to head home, people wouldn't bat an eyelid about going, hey, you've had too much to drink, I'll drive you home. That person would be called the designated driver. Now, in some other cultures, or back in Australia 30, 40 years before, people would have gone, oh, come on, mate, I'm fine, I'll be right. Sorry about the Australian accent. Hopefully you can wade through that. But it was a huge, huge change. It came from campaigns like this. And this is what I remember. If you drink, then drive, you're a bloody idiot. So, it was quite strong language to use on Australian TV back in the 70s and 80s. But every night we'd sit down and we'd be confronted with lots and lots of ads, all funded by the TAC, the Traffic Accident Commission, which was funded partly by registrations on cars right around Australia. Now, different states in Australia had different versions, but basically the same thing, and they all shared a lot of the same ads. But if you drink and drive, you're a bloody idiot became just a part of the advertising idiom in Australia. And it basically was trying to, I suppose, say that, if you are on the roads and you've been drinking, you're an idiot. And that started to sink in and made a huge generational change. Over the years, the line sort of modified, and lines like this were used. Stop kidding yourself. If you drink, don't drive. Again, funded there by the TAC in Victoria, the state of Australia where I used to live. So I'm not sure which part of the world you're from, but different governments have tried different tactics to try and stop people drinking and driving. Here in Thailand, there has been a very low-level attempt at trying to stop people drinking and driving. Now, I used to go to the cinema and there'd be an advertisement about showing that it can be dangerous. Sometimes mixed in with Thai cultural themes. For example, one of them showed an accident happening, a person having a drink, having an accident, and then their ghost sort of relating how they were sorry about the fact that they'd caused the death. In Australia, we don't use ghosts as a way of trying to train people not to drink and drive. But there was a sort of a low level of education. But the enforcement is one thing. And I mean, there has been enforcement. I had a breath test here in Thailand. I was probably during Songkran 4 or 5 years ago, but only once in 13 years of driving, and I'm pretty much on the roads every single day of the year. Now, getting used to driving in Thailand, that's one thing. And it's not as if Thailand's got significantly different rules than other countries in the world that also drive on the right-hand side of the car. It's the behaviour of the drivers and the way that they sort of relate to areas where there's a lot of traffic, staying in lanes, passing other cars. It's stuff like that. And of course, drink driving. And not only drink driving, but of course using other drugs. And if you are inclined to use other drugs besides alcohol, you are going to be less able to control a car. You obviously should not be behind the wheel of a car or a motorbike, the wheels of a motorbike, if you've been drinking alcohol at any level, or if you've been smoking marijuana, or if you've been taking any other drugs. I don't want you out on the roads when me or my family or friends are out on the roads at the same time. Any level of drug is going to affect your driving to some degree. And the most important thing when you are driving is sort of your ability to concentrate, particularly in Thailand, keeping a look at your mirrors, because there's always going to be motorcycles around you, even out on the highways, and your reaction time. So I don't want any drugs in your system which are going to reduce your ability to have an acute reaction time. I just want to mention another super chat that came in. Thank you very much to Bradley Fish. Bradley, I think you're a newbie. You're from the United States. Thank you very, very much. He just says, thanks, Tim. So Bradley, thank you very much and appreciate you watching the program. James James Marschalk. Accidents, not deaths. There were not 82,000 deaths in northeastern Thailand. I said they were traffic accidents. I'm sorry if I misspoke. I was talking about road accidents with that initial graph. I would just go back. If I misspoke and said they were deaths, I did misspeak. Let's go back to the graph. I don't want there to be any misunderstanding, and apologies if I referred to these as deaths at any time. Yeah, total number of road accidents in Thailand as of October 2023. The chart was total number of accidents. Yes, it was, and I'm sorry if I misspoke. I knew it was accidents, and if I said deaths, I did misspeak. But I think you'd probably be able to correlate the number of road deaths with the total number of road accidents, and there probably wouldn't be much change in the fact that Bangkok and northeastern Thailand probably come in number 1 and 2 when it comes to road deaths as well. But thank you for pointing that out, James. Is Saudi Arabia all the drivers are men, so women aren't to blame? Says, what's her name? I think women can drive in Saudi Arabia now. I sort of recall, but I'm still pretty sure that it's a very low proportion, even if they're allowed to. Thai bikes are only outdone by VN in Saigon. It's more dangerous on the roads in Vietnam than Thailand. Okay. If you've been to Vietnam, I mean, it's not that far from Thailand, but their whole driving culture is so different. Totally different. I mean, apart from the fact they drive on the other side of the car and on the other side of the road than Thailand, they are not at all wary about using their car horn. They just toot, toot, toot all the time. So it used to get to me, apart from just the sheer noise when you're on the road. But it is a totally different driving culture in Vietnam, even though both sort of Buddhist Southeast Asian countries, the driving culture could not be more different. Having said that, I noticed, and I think there's many YouTube videos showing this, of people on the side of a Vietnamese road wanting to get to the other side. And they say the only way to go across is just to close your eyes and walk. And the bikes and the cars just do seem to magically go around you. I don't think that's probably a recommended way of crossing a Vietnamese road, but people have shown that to happen. I've even posted a video just showing the way that you can have a crossroads, left, right, traffic coming directly towards you. So a crossroads, and they can all be going through the same intersection at the same time. Traffic lights, who needs traffic lights? And they all go through and they don't seem to hit each other much, although obviously there are quite a few deaths, but I don't think many of them are actually in the middle of these intersections where people just magically seem to be able to, I suppose if you live there and you do it on a day-to-day basis, you'd get used to it. Greg P says road safety starts with education. Road rules should be taught in school from 12 years old, as school children often ride a scooter to school. Yeah, education and enforcement is what it's all about. And when it came to Australia, it wasn't just the education, it was hitting people over the head with a very big hammer, because there was a lot of drug, alcohol testing on the sides of the roads. And then there was very heavy enforcement. And you'd lose your license. I mean, I think if you caught drink driving more than 2 or 3 times, they took your license off you for life. Sometimes it was that draconian. So heavy penalties, a lot of enforcement, and education and stuff, including the advertising on the TV. That I said was for 20 years. If it wasn't Tim Shaw selling Demtel, it was a TAC commercial saying, if you drink and drive, you're a bloody idiot. It was, looking back at it, I mean, clearly it worked. And I'm proud to say that I was part of that experiment, watching my fellow Australians from killing themselves in thousands to, hundreds by demonising drink driving and making people feel ashamed that if they were drinking and driving, they shouldn't be on the roads. I would say tonight there will be thousands of people in Thailand, a lot of them, maybe even you, driving back from a bar on your scooter, your motorcycle, whatever you want to call it, after having a few pints with friends, not even thinking twice that you shouldn't be out on the roads. And if you are out on the roads, of course, there's plenty of other people that have been drink driving around you, but at least you have got your wits about you, which is going to make you safer than if you've also had a few drinks. So it's the behaviour of foreigners here in Thailand when it comes to drink driving, not just the Thais, and we should remember that. Pat Thai says, big trucks, old buses are winners on Thai roads. Big trucks, old buses. Well, I suppose just through sheer size, you're going to come off better if you're a big truck and you collide with a motorbike. Well, who's going to come off the best in that situation? Walking on Thai sidewalks is dangerous too. Twisted ankles. Well, yeah, you've already got to watch where you're going. Andrew Garrettson, the officer at the school who should be doing the walk around and pre-trip inspection and trained in the proper safety protocols, ought to be the driver. Well, that's a very good point. Maybe the person doing the walk around should be the driver, and maybe that's the last thing they should do by law if there's a bus trip. Good suggestion. Thanks, Andrew. Michael Spigarolo. Good morning, Tim. My impression is that more and more road accidents and deaths are occurring in Phuket. The official figures show that too. Well, there's more cars on the roads these days in Phuket. That would certainly be contributing to it. Plus, there's so many tourists and people having a holiday as a proportion of the population in Phuket. I think we reported a couple of weeks ago it's got one of the highest proportions in the world of tourists versus locals. So a lot of those tourists are going to be people going to the island for a fine time. That may include drinking or using some other mind-altering substance, getting on a scooter or into a car. FJ says enforcement of existing rules is the issue. The buses passed twice yearly inspections when they should not have. Look no further than the inability to enforce helmet laws. You're right, enforcement's one of the biggest problems in Thailand. There is a twice yearly inspection for buses. And how are they done? Is there a brown paper bag involved in those inspections? So yeah, you're right. Enforcement is such a big problem. Dam, hello Dam. Dam1, comment, electric buses are huge in the UK these days. Are they the safest? I don't know. I think we're probably we're going to have to wait a few years to see the record of electric buses. There were problems with some of the early electric car batteries. I mean, I think that situation's been largely alleviated these days with some of the latest technologies, and there's a lot more technological improvement on the way for electric cars, electric buses, electric transport. It's sort of the newer version of travelling on the roads, and it's also got the largest amount of technological improvement, potential improvement ahead. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I haven't heard of a lot of general problems with the electric buses in the UK. I don't live there. Maybe you can tell me. Pad Thai, very Vincent van Gogh Pata shirt Kuntim is the fashionista in Thailand. They forgot to do the other side. Yeah, me and my shirts. It's your fault, not mine. It makes me wear these crazy shirts. I think I thanked Bradley. David Clark. David coming next year. G'day, Tim. A great opportunity for the new Prime Minister, this is Paetongtarn Shinawat, to show some real leadership and drive, excuse the pun, change in road use and public transport safety. Yeah, good point, David. I think the new Prime Minister, the youngest Prime Minister in Thailand, a female, has already shown in quite a few cases with the floods and with the bus fire a lot of compassion in her comments and her reactions. I think that's gone down pretty well with Thai people, who in some cases can be quite emotional and show that emotion and wear it on their sleeve. So I think that's gone down well. Now, will she then go back to the cabinet and say, we really need to do something concrete? Let's throw some money at enforcement. Let's throw some money at inspections. Let's really do something concrete to make a big dent in the numbers of these bus incidents. Not only for the student fire, but I mean, a week won't go by when I'm not reporting a passenger van or a bus veering off the side of a road somewhere in Udon Whoop Whoop. David, you'd also be, because you're my age, sad for you, you would also be aware that we grew up in a time where Australia transitioned from that horrendous drink driving culture to a totally different culture, really across one generation, some 20 or 25 years. It totally changed. I'm sorry, I've got an itchy nose. Thanks for your contribution, David. We look forward to seeing you next year. Robbo in the Bay. Thank you very much for your contribution. Really appreciated. I've enjoyed your videos since day one, so I thought it was time to show my appreciation. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Robbo in the Bay. Looks like you're from Australia as well. A lot of Australians online today. Joe Schmoo, just to be fair, you have the perfect storm going on with a lot of two-lane roads and the elephant in the room, a lot of Asian drivers. Sorry, this is one of the true Asians, by and large, are awful drivers. Okay, I'll let that one go by. I disagree with you. I think you go to places like... Oh, I won't even go there. Ken RQ, comment, I approach driving on the streets here in Hua Hin like an adventure in awareness training. I'll admit that I do not get as frustrated now than when I first started driving here. Yeah, look, I think this is it. The longer you drive in Thailand, the more you get used to the nuances, the slightly different vibe on the roads. If I sort of have to advise people about driving in Thailand, I say treat it like a school of fish, and you just sort of swim with the fishes. If they're going fast, go faster. If they're going slow, go slower. The idea of defensive driving and keeping a long way away from the people in front of you, well, that's all very well, but there's going to be somebody on your tail. So it really just doesn't work. Forget about your old driving culture. You've got to sort of drive like the locals if you're going to survive here. And I had a few accidents my first year here, but I haven't, touch wood, had any driving accidents since. So you sort of do get used to the vibe of driving here. Daryl McGee, thank you again, Daryl, your continuing support. Another great show. Thanks, Tim. Now, there were a few comments earlier, and I just want to make sure I haven't missed any super chats. Scott D. Hi, Scott. A Chicago evening. Excuse me. Hey, Siri, what's the time in Chicago? Okay, so it's nearly 10 o'clock where you are in Chicago, Friday night, and there was another person who said hello from Chicago as well. I think it was Gail. But Scott had a question. Where is it? Does it feel good to have recently completely cut ties with the previous chapter in your professional life? Or is it bittersweet? Scott would be referring to the tiger. I have had so there's a confidentiality clause in the contract, so I can't talk about the details, but I can declare that I am no longer a share owner in the company anymore, and I had some, 8, 9, 10% in shares, which have now been distributed amongst the other owners and investors. So that happened about 3 months ago. I now have no financial interest, emotional attachment or anything, except that I wish them well in whatever journeys and whichever twists and turns they take. Yes, it does feel good. I don't, I really didn't think much about it over the past couple of years, although I still had those shares. But no, it wasn't a big transition. I sort of was grateful to trade out of the situation, and that money's gone in the bank. And that's part of my professional life, done and dusted. I think I'm happy to leave that chapter of my life behind. Not bittersweet. There were a few things happen during the phase when I was leaving that I perhaps would have preferred went better. But, shit happens, that's life, and particularly when you're in a professional situation, you often just have to take it on the chin and move on. And that's sort of what I did. And congratulations upon the completion of your 2 most recent beach houses. And that is beach house number 2. Thank you very much, Steve Ross and the team. And beach house number 1. They're not beach house, they're Turtle Beach House 1 and Turtle Beach House 2, which are property 5 and number 6. Property number 4 and number 5, even I can't get my numbers right. So will number 5 be the final one? Somebody certainly thinks so. Okay, let's just move forward with your comments about the road safety in Thailand. Comment from Wilco. There was a good song by the Victorian band Tism at that time on road safety called Greg, the Stop Sign on YouTube. Previous long comment disregard. Okay. Thanks, Wilco. What was it called? Greg, the Stop Sign. Misdemeanor NYC says, when in Rome, Tim. I'm not really sure what you're referring to, but yeah, if you are driving in Thailand, it's sort of incumbent on you to drive like the local people and drive in such a way that you're going to make sure they're going to be safe, as well as yourself. So in many ways, I think foreigners should do some sort of short driving test with perhaps a short explanation of how driving is different in Thailand before they get behind the wheel of a car. I mean, you can arrive here, get off the plane, hire a car and drive from the airport to wherever you're going. If you've never done that before, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Because whether we like it or not, driving on Thai roads can be different. And as we've shown today, statistically, less safe than perhaps where you've been driving before. Jailer or Gola, thank you very, very much. Appreciate your support as always from the UK. So are you in the UK? You coming to Thailand? How's the pound doing against the Thai baht? I haven't checked this week, the XE, but I think the Thai baht is still increasing in value against a lot of other currencies. Opening another can of worms, which we won't bother about today. Rachel Masters has a comment. Tim, possible cause for the bus fire spreading so rapidly was caused by an external leak. Maybe they should fit emergency cut-off valves to CNG buses, I think you meant. This is obviously, it's going to be very easy for people in retrospect to sort of go, well, this shouldn't have happened, this shouldn't have happened, this shouldn't have happened. It seems that maintenance, bad choices, just greed, people trying to make more money out of their buses, the gas is cheaper to run. It looks like this company even tried to evade detection after the accident by taking their buses to Nakhon Ratchasima to remove the illegal gas tanks before they were inspected by the investigators. As I said yesterday, those people are in a world of trouble. Don't think they'll be renting out buses anytime soon. And it's a good thing that those buses are off the roads. Retirement Dreaming says the viewing numbers don't lie. Wouldn't have got much for those shares. I don't think you've done well. Keep it up, mate. Yeah, I could hardly retire on the amount, but, a baht's better than no baht, isn't it? Philip Jacobs, question, what happened to Abel from Tiger Times? Would she not be a good guest? Abel Wanamacock lives in Phuket. She is a well-known MC, an influencer, I think, on TikTok and Instagram. Haven't seen Abel since I think she was last on a program I was doing at the time called Good Morning Thailand. From memory, we did it from a cafe in Cheung Talay. So it's quite a long time ago. I haven't seen Abel for a while, but she would be a welcome guest if she was ever up this way. 33.28 to the US dollar. It's going in the right direction lately. Thank you, Corey, for the update. It's been like that for the past 3 months. So I make my money from Mr. Google and Mr. Airbnb, both American companies. And I want to see a reversal in the US dollar to the Thai baht. But that's just me being selfish. Mike Thompson, always found when driving in Thailand that the goal was for the person behind you was to get in front of you, and the lane doesn't matter if you're turning down a soy. Again, Mike, there is just some habits here in Thailand that a lot of us are going to find annoying, or we might find it dangerous. The worst thing you can do is go and start getting angry in the car. That's not helping your driving. But keep it in mind and just go, okay, I just need to watch for people. If I'm turning around, they might be going inside me. It's all about, I look at my rear view mirrors a lot more than I used to when I used to drive in Australia. Probably 3 or 4 times as much. I really note that I'm spending a lot of time checking those mirrors to check the traffic around me. Martin Workman, after just spending 7 months living in Vietnam, I can confirm that the drivers are actually quite sensible and sane, and I'm much happier riding a motorbike here. Okay, there we go. Lang F. Tan, yes, heavy fines and licences taken away for months or a few years for DUI offender, drunk under the influence. Yeah, I mean, if you're caught drink driving in Thailand, I'm not really sure if the fines, I don't even know what the fines are. I mean, there are fines there, but I don't think they're much. And I think in most cases, a small payment or an offering of buying furniture for the officer cafe might get you out of that particular fine, allegedly. So I think it is an issue, the enforcement and the penalties for drink driving in Thailand, but it does come down to educating the kids and the government just having to throw a lot of money at the problem. It's not going to change. Now, I should also, within my small circle of people, there's one person who works every day, and they would have a drink commonly at the end of the day, and then they would go and pick up their kids from school on a motorbike or in the car, sometimes with 3 or 4 beers in them. Not uncommon for them to have a beer or two during lunch. And this is sort of seen as, well, this is sort of what we do. I've had a very small word to that person about this, not in a sort of a lecturing way, but saying, hey, it might be better if you were picking up your kids, for example, that you weren't drinking before. One, as an example to the kids, and two, just your safety on the roads and the people around you. No problem, there's no problem. And it really made me think that's exactly what Australian people were saying back in the 60s and 70s. Hello, Dusty, you just tore in from the outside. Thailand does need to go through some period of reckoning. Every Songkran, there's the highest number of road deaths. It's the annual 7 days of danger, and we count the numbers every day. And the ministers go, "Oh, this is shocking." Then nothing changes. In 13 years, watching these road statistics and reporting about road deaths, even with this bus fire, there's going to be a whole lot of hand wringing and people going tut tut tut, and you shouldn't do this and you should do that. And then in a week, it's going to disappear from the news, and you wonder whether anything concrete is going to change. And probably not. When I arrive in Thailand, I turn off my Aussie mindset and switch on my Thai driving mode, says Robert Dixon. Well, there you go. It is a Thai driving mode. It's a different way of thinking about driving. And it's really up to us to try and fit into their vibe, crazy as it might be, so that we do avoid having accidents with ourselves or with the other drivers. A comment from Globebug. They dropped the speed limit in the Northern Territory of Australia, a lot of Australians today, from unlimited to 100 kilometres per hour, and the road toll went up over a 10-year period. They increased the limit again to 130 kilometres an hour, and deaths decreased. Globebug, I think that sort of bad use of statistics is a bit of an anomaly. The slower you drive, the less chance you've got of dying yourself or killing other people on the roads. I mean, that's just a matter of physics. And I think statistically, if you look around the world, speed is one of the biggest killers. And in Thailand, I think it's the second highest contributor to deaths on the roads. But I mean, the Northern Territory situation is an anomaly. Yes, for many years they had an unlimited speed limit and long, hundreds of kilometres of straight roads. Start to get that Mad Max sort of culture. If you haven't seen the original Mad Max, not Mad Max 2, Mad Max 3, whatever, Mad Max, the original one. It was made in the 1970s, starring Mel Gibson, a whole lot of other early Australian actors in sort of my thinking about Australian movies. And it's shot around my backyard in the west of, my backyard just before I started living in Thailand, used to live in Yarraville on the west side of Melbourne. And if you travel west, there's a lot of flat nothing. Where they put the airport, I mean, you should put the airport where there's a lot of flat land. And that's where they shot the original Mad Max. I think it's a great movie. Definitely worth seeing if you catch up with the original Mad Max. It gives you an indication of how big Australia is and how much of it is just hundreds of kilometres of straight, flat roads. When I arrive in Thailand, I've read that one. I've got 2 more comments, and it's time for me to go. Brian Wood. Having the bus driver doing final checks would not achieve much. Bus company owners would apply too much pressure to pass the check. Well, put the onus on them. The bus driver has to go around, do the check, has to go check, and has to be submitted with the bus company. So if anything goes wrong, blame the bus company, fine the bus company. Then I think that they'll come around to the idea pretty quickly. And Jimmy B says, I hate it when people drive 10 feet behind you at higher speeds, like you're only driving through a parking lot looking for a space to park. Lance Link says, Mad Max 1979. Ooh, just sneaked into the 70s. A great soundtrack too. I think I'm going to be getting Mad Max out today and having a bit of a look at it. Getting it out sounds like I'm sort of taking the VHS tape out of I'll be dialing it up on a digital link somewhere. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you very, very much for watching today. I mean, we've been speaking about road safety, linked, of course, to the horrific death of those 20 kids and the 3 teachers on Tuesday this week. Just thinking about it sort of really gives you the shivers. We really hope that their deaths are not going to be in vain, that something concrete may happen. I sort of doubt it, but I really, really hope it does. And I think, as Eileen suggested, we can only hope the new Prime Minister maybe has enough compassion to make some sort of request to her cabinet and the various ministries to crack down on some of these old buses and the unsafe practices of some of these bus companies, but really just road safety generally. There's so much improvement available, potential improvement. Thailand ranking very highly, whichever way, as we showed earlier, you look at the statistics, Thailand is up there. It's up in the top 10 to 20 most dangerous road areas in the world. Yes, you know what I mean. So I think it has now got so much potential improvement. Thailand could really jump into those numbers and start to move down to the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and become a much safer country on the roads. I probably don't see it. Look, I might just finally, there's probably not many people left watching now, also mention that I think, this is like out of left field, that the fact that Buddhism is so strong here and that most Thais believe in an afterlife also gives them a bit of a sabai attitude, a bit of a very relaxed attitude about dying on the roads. And now I'm just making that up. I have no evidence to back that up whatsoever. But I've always thought to myself when I get on a plane, I don't want a Buddhist or a Christian or a Muslim driving the plane because they all believe in an afterlife. I want an atheist up in the front of the plane who fears death and will do everything they can to keep that plane up in the sky. Again, slightly irrational thinking, but I'm just wondering if Buddhism and their sort of approach to an afterlife makes them just a bit more relaxed about, if I die on the roads, I'll be back tomorrow as a cockroach, so it doesn't really matter. And with that rather irrational thought, thanks for watching today. Thanks for being with us for an hour and 11 minutes. We do look forward to seeing you on Monday.